So the next material that we're going to work with is going to be colored pencils. And I know everybody's used colored pencils. You take them out of the box, you color stuff in, and sometimes it comes out great, sometimes it doesn't. So I just want to explain to you a few things about colored pencils and how to make them work better for you. Okay? Now, first of all, colored pencils, if we take one here, and you look at where the color is here on this part is made out of wax and the color is embedded in it. So for those of you guys who like to smudge, meaning that if you kind of color and you make it like with graphite pencil and you make a little bit of a mess and then you want to go back in with your finger and like mush it all up, you cannot do that with these. So this is a lot more about how we can control what we draw and then also blending. All right. Now, the other thing about these guys is a lot of times what we'll do is, let's say, like I want to make blue sky. I've got a blue pencil, so I'm just going to go for it. And what you'll tend to do is you'll just sort of be happy with whatever this is. You're like, okay, I got blue. Blue's great. Okay. And that's what you get. What I want you to be aware of and what we're going to do with this worksheet is the best way to use colored pencils is to layer colors upon colors, not just be happy with, oh great, this is blue and I need to make water, so this is going to be my water. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on with this. And I'm going to break this up into 3 parts on the sheet. Now, sometimes you luck out and you've got a really, really great set of colored pencils and they've got tons of colors, 48, 60 colors. So that's almost like having really great paint where the paint, you've got many, many, many different colors. But sometimes all you have is like a set of 12. And if that's the case, if all you have is a set of 12, then what ends up happening is your colors are limited, but you can do a ton with those 12 colors and make a whole bunch of different colors with it. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk to you about with this is how much pressure we use is going to make a huge difference on how this is going to work. So if you think about it, when you guys have taken science class, right? If you were to rub your hands together, what do we call that? And what do you feel? Okay, most of the time you're going to feel heat, and those two things rubbing together is what's called friction. So if we think about, right, I told you that this was what this is made up of is wax. Well, what happens when wax gets hot? Right? It melts. And we get the same thing when we do colored pencils. Okay? So I've got a green one. When you do this sheet, those of you folks are, if you're in my class in person, you can see all the colors to pick from. You guys at home, what I want you to do is don't use red, yellow, or blue, and especially not yellow or white because it doesn't show up really well. So in this very first section where it says light, medium, and dark, and I'm going to turn this way because of how I want to color this in. Light means how much pressure we're going to use when we color this in. Okay? And you want to try to be super neat with this because, again, remember, we can't smudge. We have to blend stuff by controlling our pencil. Absolutely. And again, we're going to stay inside the box. So we're going to try to fill this in. Now, just like we might do with graphite pencils, these are going to react much better if you go in the opposite direction. So if now I just colored that one way, and see, you can see on my lines show which direction I went in. If I color in the opposite direction, now I can fill in those areas that didn't fill evenly, and it'll look a lot more even. And again, just like it says in the paper, I am not pressing very hard. Okay. Now, when I go to medium pressure, I'm going to press a little bit harder. So one thing that you're going to notice is that the color gets darker. And when we're adding a little bit more pressure, it might be a little bit harder to blend this in. So see how I'm going to go back and forth across this. And again, I'm going to physically turn my paper so that I can come up here and go even up against this line. But I'm also going to go straight across in like little sections. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here. And now I am pressing a little bit harder. And again, when you do this bar on your sheet or on the piece of paper that you're going to make to look like this, stick with the same color. Otherwise, you're not going to get the same effect at what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so we've got our light pressure over here. We started pressing a little bit harder. Now, when we do this last one that says heavy, I'm talking about pressing really hard. So this would be like the friction and the melting when we do this. So we're going to get a really nice deep dark color. But here's the thing we have to be careful about when we go dark like this, is because we've melted the wax into this darker color, we can't blend a second color with this. It doesn't come out well. And the other thing we have to think about too, is like, what colors are we going to add together? So would we color with black first and then try to add yellow to it? Probably isn't going to work really well, right? It's kind of this concept of strong colors and weak colors. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the bottom. Okay, now what I want you to notice, and I can see it from here, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but this has actually become shiny because the wax is melted, and it actually feels really, really smooth. Whereas these guys almost have a little bit more texture to them. And this one, I'm going to have to put some effort into filling this in and making it look a lot nicer. Okay. Whereas when I did the light one, that was super easy to make it look really nice. So now in here, in this section, we had lines that separated this. In this next section that I want you to do, first of all, I'm going to change colors. I'm going to go to a purple, and we're going to transition. So instead of it being a hard line here, we want this to go from light to heavy, light to dark, but no line. Okay, so my strategy on this is going to be a lot like we did with graphite pencils, where we started with our lightest pencil. I'm actually going to fill in this whole bar with very light pressure. It's going to be the very first thing I'm going to do. Now I've changed colors. Just to make it interesting, and also just to try out different colors in your set. Much like we've done before with Magic Marker in class, where I said, test these out first. I would absolutely do the same thing with colored pencils. Different brands are going to have different colors. Like one red is going to look completely different from one box to another. So I would definitely test them out. Always, always test them out. Okay, so my first step here is I'm going to color in the whole thing with kind of light pressure. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I'm still doing light pressure just because I want to make it look neater and nicer. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So I'm just trying to make this end where my light pressure is look even. And you can definitely, if you're saying like, well, how do I know where to stop? Use the reference up here. So that means I'm going to do light kind of all the way to here. So light pressure. We want to kind of even this out. Again, when I go like this, there's nothing on my finger. You can't smudge this stuff. So that's why we've got to be a much better technician with the pencil. Okay, so now I'm going back over this a third time with light pressure just to make it filled in and look a little bit nicer. Okay, now I've kind of gone to where this line is up above, so now I'm going to go ahead and press a little bit harder. because I want it to get darker. And notice I started in the middle, not right on the end, because I don't want to make the step look like this. I want to blend it. So I'm actually going to use a heavier pressure. And notice I did leave this section. I didn't go there. And I'm going to use medium pressure, and I'm going to fill in the whole thing with a little bit of a harder pressure. But now what I'm going to do is go here, go back over here, and I'm going to go back this way because I want these two guys to blend. So I'm going to let up just a little bit to sort of fill in that area. But again, I want this to be darker, right? I want it to be heavier pressure. So I'm going to kind of be gentle about adding the heavy pressure. Some of it's going to go back into that light area. Totally fine. And then we come back in here and be a little bit darker. Okay. So now our goal was here at the end, we want to go ahead and just make it shiny. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to skip this section right here. I'm going to start with my heavier pressure back a little bit. And again, I'm doing, now again, I can see it from here that it's getting shiny. I'm going to need to turn this way just because I'm pressing a lot harder, and that friction from going back and forth is creating heat, and that heat is kind of melting the wax where the color is. Okay, so now some of this I'm going to kind of fill in this area here, and I think this needs to be a bit darker when I look at it compared to these guys. So I'm going to go back over this again, especially down here at the end, right? Because the end should be our darkest spot. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of go over so we don't have that line. Okay. So what we end up with is we've got 3 boxes with a line separating them that are the light pressure, a medium pressure, a heavy. And like I said, I want you to do that to see what happens when the wax in the colored pencil kind of melts. Then below that, what we want to do is work on transitioning from a light, a medium to a heavy, which is also going to be light, medium, dark, but no line showing, right? We just want to blend through that. All right, so that's the first step in this sheet that we're going to work on, practicing with colored pencils and how much pressure we should use.